Welcome to the Bitcoin Aggregated podcast. I think this is, I don't know, what are we up to? Like number 8, 7 or 8, if you include Monday's session, which was really productive. We went through a bit of a design for curriculum, which was really cool. And I think I've wrapped my head around, afterwards I had a meeting with Peter Hutton, who may be joining us, I'm not sure. And I think I broke his brain. So mission accomplished. So we had about an hour chat and we went through everything, and he went away, I think, with some good ideas, but a lot of questions as well. So hopefully I can map that out and not make it as scary, or we can do that sort of collectively. Just wanted to do a quick intro for our new friends here that have been really supportive and helpful. So Peter and Michelle, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, and thanks for your invitation, Kieran. Can you go first?
Yeah. I'm Michelle Delmaris from Tech Explorations. We met Kieran through our podcast many years ago.
And physically
in
pre-pandemic
person.
in Melbourne, yeah.
Back in the day.
So just so you know what a background is, I'm personally a geek, so I'm interested in this from a technological perspective, but also we are educators. So Tech Explorations is an online education platform. We teach electronics, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and things like that. And therefore we have a foot of interest also in the education space and see how we can improve things education-wise. We have had, I've written a book actually about what's wrong with education today. So I do have a stake in this, and maybe in my second edition of the book, I can talk about DICE, dedicate a new chapter. And I was just thinking about that. We are considering ourselves outsiders to this project, from, again, looking into it from the outside in, and we hope that we can help both in the direction that the project is taking, but also to make it more well known in the community and bring other people on board. So we've spent about a week thinking about it. We had a chat with Kieran last week, I think it was Monday. I've got to tell you that we are more confused than our clarity levels are very low right now, but we're actually excited despite that, because of the potential that the technology in it, coupled with the need for education to reform in a way, all that looks like very promising. And from that point of view, we are happy to be able to contribute at least a little bit as outsiders. So we do have, I'm not sure, since this is our first meeting, we're not sure what is the structure of those meetings. If there is a topic in particular that you guys want to discuss today, if there's a theme, for example. So we're just going to sit back and relax and see how you do what you do, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah. I'd also like to add, I've got a background in customer journeys and making geek and the regular person meet. So I've worked in IT and optics, and I'm all about making it accessible for people. So for whatever the project is, or whatever the content is, it's about ensuring that the regular person can understand what's going on with highly technical content and concepts.
Awesome. You know, it was really funny, actually, just coincidentally, after we had our chat, was it last week? Like afterwards, you know how Google does photo reminders this day,
one every day.
It was us in the STEM center with the kids doing crazy faces. That is so weird. I forgot to take a screenshot because disappears after you look at it. Anyway, it's funny. All right, so there's two things. So I've done an update to the two things I wanted to just jump into. So can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
So I took your advice, Peter and Michelle, and did a bit of an overhaul of the website to make it a bit more clear with a video, which is a bit of an explainer, which I reckon we can do a better job, obviously, but it's just there for now. And yeah, links to like the roadmap, obviously, the faculty, which is all of us, our LinkedIn page. I actually started with a like a spreadsheet, and I thought, oh, hang on, we've got our LinkedIn page. Let's just use that.
Yeah.
Stats community. So this will be one for Chris. Basically, once we get an idea of like what we can do with the session, because I really wanted to ask him some questions on that. But that's, I think, specifically for the ANZ one. And yeah, obviously Substack newsletter and virtual classroom, that sort of thing. And I just put all our media and links down the bottom. So I think it's a bit clearer in terms of that. Now, this is what I'm really excited about from our meeting on Monday. I think I've got some clarity over what we're doing. More so, and in fact, even talking with Peter, I think it's been quite helpful. So to run through it just quickly, so we have our School of Bitcoin stacks pool, and I might just mute you, Jill, because I can hear people. Yep, perfect. You read my mind. Yeah, so we've got the stacks pool. The learners, so learners could be anyone. A learner could be an individual, could be a student in a school, could be an entire school, could be all of us learning through something. It can be basically anyone. So, and if I get something wrong, Jacques, jump in and tell me that I'm crazy. But I think it makes sense. So basically, a learner can fork the School of Bitcoin as a DAO. So we're going to run through that together and actually create that, create the top DAO, I suppose you call it. And with that, they're creating sub DAOs on GitHub specifically. And then through that process, they're creating a certification. So that certification is an NFT. And what I'm thinking is, so this is kind of replacing the whole concept of tokenization. So we don't have a token to pay learners. We have the NFT certification instead. So akin to like a MOOC, where you can run through a MOOC. So you go through like Harvard's MOOC, which we've all probably signed up to and not finished. But if you do finish it, you can pay to actually get your certification. So akin to that, but instead of just paying some like school or whatever it is, you're actually contributing to the stacks pool. Now, I reckon, because it could be a student who's got no money, or it could be a wealthy organization, I reckon we do a minimum of 1 stacks to, or STX token to mint your NFT. So you're like, oh, I've got this thing, awesome, I've just run through this course. Or it could be as much as you want to contribute. So if you're a wealthy organization, you could mint your NFT for much more, and then it's obviously worth more to the ecosystem as well. So from there, that stacks pool obviously runs itself, gets bigger and bigger, has more BTC rewards. As BTC rewards go into a multi-sig wallet, so instead of a governance token, I reckon we do like the faculty or the EDU community controls the private key. So I think you can do 15 co-signers. So you do like 5 of 15 or something. And that lets the EDU community vote on, which is all of us, vote on 2 things. So curriculum updates. So to the original DAO, so the original School of Bitcoin DAO, or the top DAO, learners can use their minted NFT to contribute to that. So it's like, all right, I got this certification. This is what I want to bring to the party. Then all of us vote yay or nay on that. And the other thing they can do with that certification, so instead of the tokens, they have that cert. This is the problem-based / project-based thing I want to work on. And that could be anything. And basically they submit that to the group. The group then says yay or nay on whether that's a project we'd like to commit some sats to. So sats being the BTC fund. Then we use Wallet of Satoshi to on the Lightning Network to actually pay the learners for whatever project that is. So in the midst of doing that, through this process, they've actually created their own sub-DAO of the School of Bitcoin, and that could be any one of these things. So my favorite, Jill's Game, so a card game, is a sub-DAO of the School of Bitcoin, running through the same process that we do to actually create the school. We'll reach out to the Indonesian Stacks community so they can be a sub-DAO as well. Obviously the ANZ community, so that'll be us. And that's probably a really good example of us running through this program together, creating the sub-DAO, and then for this part, so we have a cert for it, or NFT for the actual creation of the sub-DAO for ANZ community. But we could actually just go, well, look, we don't want to do one token. We want to put the whole lot into the pool to help this organization sort of thing. In Peter's school, so this Future Schools Alliance, he could do his entire school, or he could do like for example, I was saying, it could just be like a year 11 group that want to do a project within your school. It doesn't have to be the entire thing. But I thought for fun, we'll run through it with him to begin with, so he gets an idea. And I think he's really good because he's definitely a lifelong learner, and he's not afraid to try new stuff. And he asks like questions that kind of stump you as well. So I reckon he'll be the perfect person to run through that. And then finally, I thought the Lightning Outreach program. So that that guy, the homeless guy over in Amsterdam who had that article up, I thought, well, that would be perfect. So he runs through this, he gets some financial literacy, he has the DAO that he's created, and then he can do like something like an outreach program that we could potentially fund through this. And like for him, so Peter's school obviously would have a lot more SDX tokens, or ANZ community. This guy may only have like one token. Fine, he can get certified, but he's got a really good idea, so we still vote to fund his idea. So anyway, does that make sense to anybody? Or is it just me?
I mean, I think we've been working on this together for a little bit, so it makes sense to me. I mean, there's still some of the little specifics that are a little hazy, but I think once we start like solidifying like the actual like token engineering, I think we'll work through a lot of the questions that I have. But overall, it seems like a great way for like energy and just value to go through the ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, it was really your idea for the NFT part of it, because that's where I was getting stuck, like the tokenomics around actually building, like how do you pay students and how do you allocate like X amount of funds to one student versus another. It's quite complicated. Please invite Chris. I thought I did invite Chris. All right, I'll shoot another email. Hang on 1 second.
Can I jump in just with a couple of
yeah, sure thing.
So, and just remember, I've only been thinking about this for about a week, so
yeah,
this might be stupid or comments. So one thing is that obviously the D for DAS stands for decentralized. So in your diagram, I noticed there's quite a bit of dependency on the EDU community to vote and make decisions. So my question is that dependency for the purpose of bootstrapping this initiative, or do you see it retaining its relevance into the future?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's probably something that we probably need to look at down the track. My thinking around the multi-sig fund instead of a governance token is one, security, because at the moment on Stacks you can't do multi-sig, so I couldn't wrap my head around how
so there's a technology constraint there that requires that. Yep.
So, will that be in the DAO design?
Yeah, well, I think so. I don't know.
So the Jarks, are you in the? I noticed on Discord that Stacks actually have a DAO working group. Is anyone in that, or anyone seen that?
I was like, I was in it before. I haven't seen many emails recently. I might need to reach back out, but they were talking about just like DAO tooling that they wanted to create for the Stacks ecosystem.
For their funding, I think it was.
They're pretty highly conceptual for them, but are you saying maybe we could like funding to like build the multi-sig?
No, I think it was just the next part of a bit of research for myself is like learning more about these DAOs and how the governance and the whole structure of it is. So that's what I think. Yeah, so I think that's a bit of a next part of the journey there. You've got some structures there, but then how does the whole governance and tokenomics work? I don't know a lot about that, but I'm learning.
There's a really good group. They're called the Token Engineering Commons. But they're creating, they have like a lot of different just resources out there that dives into the tokenomics, the crypto economics behind everything. And like one way that they start off, I've done this with another project. It's called platform design, and it could be good for us to kind of run through and see. It's kind of like just like mural boards, but it's kind of like high level conceptual. But it just allows us to like really plot out how the value flows and exactly what the mechanisms are. So we could plug in like the learners, like the NFT mechanism, and see exactly. At the end of that, I feel like we could have a pretty decent case study of what the overall tokenomics of the decentralized education system is. Yep,
sounds great. I think that's the next path.
I reckon we could roadmap it as well, because like just listening to like Jack Mallard's one of his podcasts, he was talking about like how he came up with the idea for Strike, and he was doing it manually to begin with. So like literally like just paying people in, I think it was a place in Australia actually, and he was like doing the Lightning transaction and then paying people. He's like, well, we can just automate this process like later. So I think I think that piece probably needs to be automated somehow or have some token around it. But in the interest of security for the interim, I think it's the only way I could wrap my head around how to actually set that piece up. So the EDU community.
I think it does make sense to have the EDU community, because this is all new ground. So you need someone essentially driving this whole thing. I don't see how it can kind of evolve on its own. So that's fine, as long as we know that as this project progresses into the future, it becomes more truthful to its name and more decentralized over time.
Yeah,
that the community takes a second place in the history. So I've got on this just one more comment on your introduction, Kieran, and that has to do with NFTs. So my understanding of NFTs is that they're basically digital property. It could be anything, right? Video, audio, could be a document, it could be a lesson or a curriculum. I guess those things are property in the real world, and they could be property in a blockchain world as well, no problem. I'm looking now from the point of the view of the learner who is absorbing curriculum that has been created by a content creator. I don't see, well, the NFTs could still play a role there, but I'm thinking that there's perhaps a few components missing that I didn't see in your diagram earlier. For example, contracts or let's say that someone completes a course or a test and earns a certificate. Like that certificate needs to exist perhaps somewhere in the blockchain. I don't think that it will be an NFT, because I don't conceive a certificate as being property, because you can't really sell it. If I earn a certificate from university, it's not an NFT. I can't sell it. Yes, I could, but it sounds fraudulent, right? To sell it to someone else. So probably some kind of digital contracts like you'd see in Ethereum might make sense there. So I'm just throwing those out just to progress the conversation a little bit.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess traditionally, you sell NFTs. So it's like, you created whatever, this piece of art.
It's like a home. Okay. When you buy a home, though, you use a contract, like a legal contract, which is well mapped in digital contracts, say in Ethereum. I also understand the concept of currency in the system, in the DICE system. Obviously, I think it does make sense because it is part of human motivation to do something for a currency-based reward.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you want to promote, and learning from existing blockchain-based systems where currency exists to basically trade effort for something, it makes sense. It's also a good way to raise monetary resources to pay for a project. So just start throwing those out as additional components that can perhaps can address specific needs of the DICE system. So I might just leave it at that, because I don't want to confuse you or me with more comments. I'm considering myself a total amateur in this.
No, that's really helpful. It's
I had high confidence to make those comments at the moment.
No, that's great. No, I think that's definitely something we should take into consideration. It was actually, you know what? I think we need to probably go through the process ourselves. So, like your emails this week, Jack. I think once we do that and get our heads around how this works for us and potentially the ANZ Stacks community, then we'll have a better understanding of how it'll work for everybody else. So again, it's still pretty high level, I think. But yeah, I just tend to think in mind maps, so it just helps me put things together. And there probably is a bunch of stuff missing.
Just one more thing, also, like that might be a big one, and I'm a bit reluctant to mention it, but I will. It's like it seems that Bitcoin is a central component to this effort, and I'm not sure why that is. Considering that we can actually considering two things. One, Bitcoin does have history behind it, not always positive, not always negative. Just it can be easily confused by the naive person who is not that familiar with these technologies. In your diagram, other than seeing the word Bitcoin in saying the logo and things like that, I don't see how it actually plays into the system. So, for example, we've got NFTs. I don't think they relate to Bitcoin directly. Things like the certificates and the contracts that I was talking about earlier don't really have anything to do with Bitcoin. So I was thinking, why is Bitcoin central to this process instead of perhaps a new currency? Like we can create a new currency. I think you kind of touched on minting something that I perceived as some kind of digital currency with its own blockchain. And removing the word Bitcoin might actually make it easier for us to shape this system without the legacy of Bitcoin.
So two things on that. So basically the Stacks community, so the Stacks system is actually built on top of Bitcoin. So I guess that'll be part of the process with that. That's why you get rewards in BTC off that specifically. So like minting the NFTs, creating the pool, smart contracts, all on top of Bitcoin. And we picked out specifically, so that's a really good question, actually. So it's not a Bitcoin maximalist project at all, but we're treating every other cryptocurrency, blockchain, DeFi network, whatever, as a fork of Bitcoin, because it's the strongest currency in the world. It's the best network in the world. It's the fastest network in the world. And I think we need to really drive that home. Not to say that other people aren't doing cool projects. So yeah, you can spin up your own tokens like Warana coin or whatever we did back in the day. And that's all awesome. But I think that the understanding needs to be that the main network is the BTC network. And the other aspect to that, like we picked that name, the School of Bitcoin, specifically because of that, because there is a lot of what's called FUD out there, so fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We need to really address those points, I think, to educate people. So, for example, one of Peter's big things was the energy FUD. So, you know, it uses too much energy, it's killing the planet, when in fact it's doing the complete opposite. So it's actually incentivizing people to go green, incentivizing like companies to not waste energy. So like when you have a power plant, it's generally like far away from the city, and you lose a whole bunch of energy between the power plant and the city. So I think that narrative, like that's one narrative, and there's a whole bunch of other ones that I take for granted, that it's like, well, that's done. Like everybody knows that's nonsense. But like you're saying, Peter, there's people out there that are still quite naive, and you know, they still think fiat's a great idea. Like, what? Centralized currencies, this is madness. So I think
they're really valid points. I think anyone coming into the School of Bitcoin, I think everyone that's in the School of Bitcoin, or as you come into the School of Bitcoin, the mainstream narrative on Bitcoin and all the things why they don't want to see Bitcoin and they don't want to use the word Bitcoin, it's like, well, we just go, look, guys, it's just get used to it. We are the outsiders. We're going to grow from 150 million users to 3 billion users over the next 3 years. That's what's going to happen. So get on the program. Bitcoin's there. It's not going away. It's integrated in every organization, every bank. It's in about 1% of corporations now. It's being integrated into countries. So it's there, and it's the most decentralized network on the planet. It's the largest computer network on the planet. And so you going through those narratives, and part of the School of Bitcoin will dispel those narratives.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting metaphor I heard, saying that Bitcoin is wastes energy is like saying that a fire truck wastes water putting out a fire.
So going
I
on
like
from there, so going on from there, we need to have some messaging on the front page that explains exactly what the story is. So there's nothing, like I haven't watched your video, but there's nothing that when I Google School of Bitcoin that will come up telling me about School of Bitcoin.
It needs prior knowledge to get it.
Yeah, so we need to have messaging on the front page so that it's picked up by Google, so that it's also picked up when as soon as somebody lands on the site, that they can go, wow, that's what it's all about.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea. And maybe it could just be the question, why is this all about Bitcoin? And if you click on it, a little video pops up with someone just explaining it in a really neat way. Is that what?
You'll also need written content as well, so that it's picked up and so that it has by the algorithms.
Yeah, when I go to the School of Bitcoin, I expect that it's going to have teaching information about Bitcoin. Because I don't know, I want to go to the School of Bitcoin to learn about Bitcoin, but it's actually
it's a network and
Bitcoin there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be great to bring you all into some more of our working sessions. So like part of the structure that we're working through on GitHub, it goes from like, how do we create an open source mission statement? How do we create an open source roadmap? How do we create an open source branding, including the visioning, the content, the actual design of the website? How do we go about all that? There's an entire community called bitcoin.design is the URL, but they have an entire messaging for Bitcoin. So essentially, like, I know that was one part of like the structure that had some questions, but I was even looking through today, and like their entire outline says exactly why Bitcoin matters, how we can actually present a coherent brand. So like I feel like you have so many good insights on like what you would love to see. Because I mean, exactly what you would like to see on the website is exactly what we should put on the website, because it's like, that's research. So like if we could start like bringing you all into these conversations as we develop this, because we haven't really started with it yet. So that would be great to get as much feedback as possible. But that's
happy to help. Yeah. Let us know.
Hey, you beat me to it, Gordon.
Looking at Bitcoin to design. Wow, nice.
Yeah, it's really great. And like, so I think it's great because also when learners come through and they're creating their own DAO, they'll be able to turn it into whatever they want. But like the design guidelines that we set up here is the design guideline that we can use on the website. It's the design guideline that we can use on social media. It's like the tone that we use in messaging. So when other people want to make user-generated content, they can put the School of Bitcoin messaging out there in a cohesive voice. And it would all be supported by this community that is just growing. More and more really, really talented graphic designers that are all like shaping what Bitcoin should be, because they're basically working against all the FUD and just giving positive content about what Bitcoin's actually doing.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Because even so, each of the 9 sections, I think it makes sense if we essentially, those are like different departments. So we could just reach out to Bitcoin Design and say, like, do you want to help us figure out like what's a curriculum for how a DAO creates a brand, a cohesive brand narrative? So then Bitcoin Design could be a course, and then other DAOs can come in and be like, oh, thanks for this structure. I'm going to change the fonts. I'm going to change the color. This is a polka dot course. I'm going to change it to this, this, and this. But like this could be, again, Bitcoin, as far as the design, it could be the base layer, and then everything on top of it can kind of be derivatives of it.
Brilliant.
Framework.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
because there's a lot of tools we can follow to do this, but it comes down to the fundamentals of what is the School of Bitcoin all about. So, for example, we can start with a problem statement. Today's schools and school system sucks for ABC reasons. We need to. What's a solution? So the School of Bitcoin.
That's so
Why?
sucks. Needs improvement.
I'm
Otherwise, you'll
just,
disenfranchise a whole lot of people.
I'm just making emphasis here, but I'm not saying everything sucks. But some parts.
What's the primary tenet though for the School of Bitcoin? Financial literacy.
Yes, exactly. What is it about? Why do we need it? And then that can perhaps engage us in a conversation where we can actually answer many of the questions that we've been asking in this meeting so far. And that can then drive the technology and the design behind it.
Also, we need to address why it's important to somebody else, how it's going to change
not us,
them, and how it's going to benefit the individual that's sitting in front of the computer on the other side, and how it will benefit communities and generate something greater than just one person, just a group of people, that it will, create change.
And we can actually narrow down to early adopters. Like with any project, it's probably a waste of time trying to generalize and say that this is great for everyone, but maybe figure out who is feeling most of the pain in the way that things are right now, and therefore who could this system help the most, and then tailor the message for those particular people. From there, we can start to expand and generalize and take over the world eventually. But it's got to start somewhere. So who's having the biggest pain with how things are now?
Particularly when you're developing your MVP, like it's really important to get that feedback in the early stages.
One really simple thing is I take an example of my daughter, she's got a savings account. So she's feeling a lot of pain in her savings account at the moment because it's just like dwindling away to nothing. She couldn't save fast enough to buy a surfboard over the next 5 years, but in some other financial assets like Bitcoin, gold, tokenized real estate, she's doing pretty well out of buying some engine coins, and her Bitcoin's up about 700%. So I mean, but that's in the decentralized. Her gold's up about, I think, 100%. So pretty important to her. She's going to walk out of school that'll be interesting to see what she does work out of school versus someone that took a savings account.
That's huge. Yeah,
so it's very important for her.
That would be a good target, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say that's really key. It's young people that are probably the I guess for the legacy system, the people that kind of get hurt the most, because if you look at like boomers, for example, they've all got houses and they've created debt for everybody else, but they don't really care because they have their retirement and they have a house that's paid off. Whereas your daughter, for example, if she just had money in a savings account, she wouldn't be able to do that.
So it's the explanation of, look, I give my money to the bank, they give me 0.1% interest, and they lend it out at 4% interest or 3% interest on a mortgage, and all of that profit goes to the shareholders of that bank. So I'm better off with her having a share in the bank rather than having a cash in the bank. So some financial literacy for her would be, okay, well, how are we going to maximize your savings and opportunities, or how would I how would I grow a fund to start a business, or, you know, debt versus raising money through crowdsource or, you know, type funding, you know, so the debt system versus the non-debt system, I guess, or so there's lots of questions. I'm really curious as to what the curriculum is going to look like.
And is it just for young people, or is it also for older people who need to relearn the concept of money, like people in the accounting and finance industry, my own industry? We're the ones that talk to people about money and need to relearn what it is now.
Yeah, but here's another question that comes from that is like, why don't we just build a course to answer all these questions and then put it on Udemy or on YouTube, and young people can go and access it? Why do we need DICE?
Yeah, well, I think that's something that's kind of been done. So there hasn't been, and there's plenty of like information that's out there. There's just no consensus over it. So you have disjointed information kind of all over the internet. It's getting better and better. But financial literacy means so much to so many different people. So how do we get a cohesive system that addresses that, but then also supports people as well? So I think like the big thing that excites me is being able to have a system in place where learners come in, have like get a, it's like you're never going to get to truth, but as close to truth as possible as to what financial literacy is and what it means to the broader community, and then what can I do with that. At the moment, it's like, you know, project-based learning for the most part in schools, it doesn't really address like the broader community and problems in society. So I think that's the two aspects that really excite me. And I think if we can keep it on that track, we're kind of going in the right direction anyway.
So going back to your diagram, Kieran, right down over in the corner where you've got the problem-based learning activity. I sort of see that as, I was just doing up to the things to do with where revenue streams can come from, and out of that project-based learning activities there, you're actually, it's almost like I see that as could be like a business, the business incubator. You're talking about the guy that was the homeless guy that, you know, with some assistance and doing the course could end up over there doing a project, and then he's got a business.
That's right.
So it's yeah, and I guess the business at the moment is the thing that Bitcoin offers is that you get true property ownership. You get actually. Sorry, I had something in my mind about this one in one of the questions. But yeah, you end up with the ability to send property across networks. Not, you know, it's not just about money. I can't quite form my context. I'll leave that for a minute.
Well, I was thinking for it kind of goes back to your point as well, Peter, about the EDU community being centralized. My thinking around that was, say, using this homeless guy, for example. So he creates this project and he's helping all these people. He's got financial literacy to a certain degree now. He wants to contribute. He wants to join the EDU community. We put that to a vote. The community gets bigger. That's where this part probably needs to change at some point. But I think that's how it becomes more decentralized. So the more people that are part of the EDU community that want to contribute, and it's not just about the financial aspect to that. It's akin to like GitHub. So you have, you know, all these people with different skill sets that can actually help people develop those projects that they want to build out as well. So like he's gone through and say done an outreach program, and we've supported him doing that with whatever tools that we have here. Then he comes in with whatever skills he's developed, or maybe he's got skills sort of previously that we're not aware of, contributes them to the community, and then helps other learners build out their stuff as well.
Aaron, I'm wondering, just, I guess, Peter, I was like, this is making me think, you were asking, why isn't there a curriculum where we ask these questions and then we answer it, right? Like, I feel like the idea behind this is that like the fact that it's a days means that you and your group could clone like a repository, and then you could design a course however you think. Like you could plug your book into your course, and you could generate questions from your course. You can create an NFT for your course. You can create like a game around your course. So like everything that the School of Bitcoin is doing, it's just a model. But then you come in and you create a course that becomes a part of the overall curriculum. And maybe the course that you put out there makes the other courses that are already in there completely obsolete because it's so much better. And then all the other courses get better because of what you're bringing to the system. So it's like, it's just an outline. So like I think you were looking at the bottom and you were seeing like legacy education organizations there, making it, you think it was centralized, but all of those things at the bottom, that could be even like the homeless, like the person experiencing homelessness, they are the exact same as a school. They could come in and create a curriculum the exact same as a legacy school system could. So like, I think that's where like the decentralization really comes in with the bottom. Like I think you might be looking at the bottom and saying like, why do we have all these bigger entities coming in? But it's like any person, any group can clone it over, and they could follow the steps that the School of Bitcoin is doing to create a curriculum and a decentralized course or project. And then that becomes a part of the broader ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I understood the bottom word we essentially users. I was wondering the role of the EDU community and how central it really is in a decentralized system. But I understand there's a transition happening that may take a bit of time.
Bring it up in.
Well, actually, just thinking out loud as well, like this whole part runs separate to that. So this is just an extra sort of on top. So it is part of the School of Bitcoin because we want to fund projects, but it's not predicated on this EDU community. It's predicated on a curriculum that's open on GitHub that anyone can fork and build out these projects. And this is optional as well. So they don't actually have to they don't actually have to buy their cert or contribute to the pool if they don't want to. So it's, yeah, I don't think it is predicated on that. I think at some stage I would like to make this open and not dependent on us. And I think we can do that. But does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, in some work that we're doing at the moment, Electra and I are doing the Advanced Diploma Applied Blockchain, and we're researching a DAO for our foundation at the Digital Playhouse. And so part of that research is how you do design something to become decentralized. So it's like Bitcoin. I actually had a question, I was like, was Satoshi anonymous? Because some of the legal implications around creating a DAO, and I'll go through that later, because isn't Bitcoin really the ultimate DAO? I mean, it's the DAO. So it's like everything else. If you say, look at Algorand, they've just moved to decentralization, but now within the governance model, they're restructuring a few things and putting up to the community about how it's going to operate. And Hedera Hashgraph have got 29 of the 500 corporations in the world that are on their governing council, and that's going to expand up to 39, and eventually over 15 years they're going to fully decentralize. So that, yeah, these concepts around, other than Bitcoin, how is everyone decentralizing without having someone there at the back end in a limited company that's got the keys, Yeah. So
as a launch pad,
I think there's quite a bit to investigate about the design of the DAO and how you can eventually decentralize it completely from an extreme of complete decentralization to centralization of 3 people holding keys up to 15 people holding keys. So, and where the balance is, it seems to be something that Electra's been finding,
exploring at the moment, working out,
digging around the edges of, and I thought that the Stacks working group might also be dealing with those sort of issues.
Yeah.
So I think it's an area to be seriously researched.
100%. Looks like Jill posted something. Keep me on mute as it's noisy here. Okay. Just wanted to add that we could reach out to the IB school or into the International Baccalaureate schools eventually. Students at the MYP programs. What's MYP? Some projects for the year 10. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Could support this journey with students. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. let's definitely reach out to them. I think that'll be awesome. I think that, yeah, getting more students involved definitely would make a difference. And I think getting their input as well. So I've got a number of students actually that have worked on some projects, particularly like building the VR school and stuff. I think they'd really dig this. So I think at some point, once we have our curriculum set and we run through the DAO together, I reckon we get their input as well and get them creating their own stuff. But yeah, definitely, Jill, reach out to them, 100%.
Who were those guys?
The International Baccalaureate.
Okay.
Quick,
Buy me a link.
just quick question, really quick. Are we talking about multiple curricula now? Because in the discussion, we talk a lot about teaching Bitcoin essentially and digital currencies. But my understanding is that DICE is going to be open to any kind of curriculum, right? Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
So
There's another problem with calling it the School of Bitcoin, because you can actually learn over time a great deal of different topics.
yeah, I think you could use this model for other stuff, but probably for the financial literacy aspect, we'll incorporate other DeFi networks and that sort of thing. So you could learn about Ethereum on here as
I'm
well.
talking about
I think
not just blockchain related stuff, but like, can you create a geography curriculum, or how to do a viral video on YouTube, or like totally open, agnostic in terms of topic?
sure. Yeah, I think,
for instance, Big History Project. So not sure if somebody there would be interested in, because that content is free and open and it has a good community, whether, you know, Bill Gates' organization would be interested in trying something like this out. So they've got the curriculum and everything like that, and the reach.
yeah.
And it could be a good way to integrate it into schools.
Yeah, no,
Sorry,
definitely.
Slightly
So
off topic, but
That's an example of
yeah.
topic.
it's good.
Yeah.
It's really good. Well, I think, yeah, definitely. So the idea is so there's points that we had down the bottom. They could all be curriculum that the people are writing up, schools are writing up, students are writing up, whatever, and then we can incorporate that into, if it's sort of relevant to financial literacy, we can incorporate that into the School of Bitcoin. But from running through it, they can create whatever. So Tech Explorers could be a DAO, like Jacques was saying before.
So the School of Bitcoin will create the infrastructure, blockchain, Bitcoin based, the things that you had on your diagram, that can be used for all sorts of education projects.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you learn, there's a bunch of guest relations that are required, like a teacher, a learner, someone creating the content, someone taking the content, comments, corrections over time, clones, and so on, and all that can be managed by the infrastructure that the School of Bitcoin is about to create. So, am I thinking the right way?
Yep, that's exactly it. And we probably need to, I actually had a good suggestion from Peter Hutton. He said you should use some cartoons because it's not as scary for people like, yeah. If I was a good animator, I definitely would.
It's a problem. You need some guidance.
All right, so just looking at our notes. So we had, so your email, Gordon, did you want to run through some of this stuff? I'll share my screen. Yeah. Should have kept it shared, really, shouldn't I? Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys have obviously done a bit of research into this stuff. Do you want to run through that at all?
Oh yeah, can I just share my screen?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what I did this week was I dived into the legal structures behind DAOs. We talked about, Kieran's, we sort of talked about initially, you know, whereas ultimately, when you have a DAO, there's one key aspect which is important. I have this trouble with this dual screen. Can anyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll just come. Yeah, so basically I looked at the School of Bitcoin and the legals behind the DAO, so the responses and liabilities of the founders. So the key points that I've basically put together a little paper on that there, which we can have a read through later. But the biggest thing here is this, the limited legal liability. So there's many DAOs being created around the world. And the question would be is how many of the founders are actually, like, what's the legal status of the founders, even though they've handed it over? If at the end of the day I use something and something went wrong, who would be liable at the end of the day?
Yep.
So it's been suggested that there's by lawyers that there's joint and several liability, like in a partnership. You know, you don't have the limited liability in a DAO, so that limited legal liability for those involved in the centralized governance, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. So
Needs to be
some
considered.
of the key points in there. So I looked at a few things. I looked at different lawyers' opinions. So we use Joni Pirovich. She's does work with the Senate Committee for Australia, and she's done some articles in there. Did an article recently about where things are at, and that's a worth a read. I also looked into Wyoming, and Michael Bianca and the team at Piper Alderman have written a paper and analysed the Wyoming model, and DLA Piper also analysed more of the structures of a DAO in Wyoming. I also found a new and interesting little I think it's not too long ago, maybe 7 days ago, that they brought it in that in the Marshall Islands you can create DAOs. And there's a little group, these guys did some research in regards to shipyards, and 20% of shipyards have limited companies in the Marshall Islands. So yeah, the guys from shipyard, so the guy, what's his name? I'll find it there. I did a post on the Living Room Satoshi and joined them in anyway. They went through the different options. So state of Wyoming, Cayman Islands, Panama, Switzerland, and they've done a little graph here in regards to what areas, you know, the different pros and cons for running or having a legal structure to protect the original founders. So Australia is yet to determine that. However, they seem to be looking to make an aggressive move to get it right.
And we won't know until later in the year.
Yeah, so I don't know. There was a meeting with the Senate just a couple of days, I think last week.
Okay, so there might be.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah. Or Joni, and I think one of the projects, Ocean Floor, that we're doing some things with. I think we're presenting. So I've got a few different links there of the you know, articles about these liabilities, and you know, there's some questions around. I think there was a point brought up about the adaptability of a DAO over time. So we're talking about starting off, you know, maybe with 15 signatures,
Yep.
and where that goes over time and how you manage that over time governance. So quite a lot of interesting questions that were brought up in there. Yeah, and some things to think about. So I've not really had much to do with open source before. So when you start out doing things, you know, how does it actually work in open source? Who is liable? Who's the like? So I think a pretty important point that we need to look at. But at this stage, if we're, without doing a deeper dive, the Marshall Islands, if we said, right, we're going to start a DAO tomorrow, and we wanted to limit the liability of all the founders and the people with that actually holding the keys, looks like the Marshall Islands, just according to one night of research, would be the place at the moment.
That's really helpful.
Sorry again?
What about the option of using an existing legal structure here?
Yeah, so I guess that's the question I come back to here right now, is that establishing an initial legal structure, even, you know, prior to, and whether it's a company limited by guarantee, not-for-profit organisation or trust. Look, and so I suggest that maybe, you know, having a conversation with Joni about that, because she's at the forefront. Her previous advice we had from her was about 1,500 plus GST. So, you know, I'd have a chat at the lecture. It's maybe something we could look at sooner than later, have a look at and have a chat to Joni.
That's a good idea. We could probably incorporate that into the ANZ Stacks fund, I suppose, like her fees.
Yeah, that was another question about, how to manage stacks. Obviously, everything somewhere along the line, it comes back to something, and whoever's managing the funds need to have limited liability.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
So we're quite advanced in, we've set up a limited liability company to operate the digital playhouse Bitcoin fund that we're creating. So that's our objective. So we're sort of learning in this space pretty fast.
That's awesome.
I also had I heard some things in the sorry, I'll just stop share and find my next thing. Also heard Jill talking about funding, and probably coming up with some pathways of where we might get our initial funding from, get a bit of direction from the as to what we might look down, what paths we might look down. So if there's other blockchains that are obviously involved, they have community funds. So say, for example, if someone from Algorand wanted to contribute their part of education about what is financial literacy with Algorand, there's community grants and the like. So most blockchains, well, all blockchains have foundations, and you can apply for grants. So I actually started some things up on that. I'll just have to find.
Just thinking out loud, we could actually run through to say like Algorand, like they've got a funding program. We could actually create a DAO of the School of Bitcoin specific for that, and create curriculum as we're doing it for their blockchain, and use that as an application. That might be really cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought that, it's probably picking, say, one at a time, as in where there might be funding and contributors. So, there's obviously in funding, you've got Bitcoin donations. There's the stack chapter. We'll look to run a stacking pool of some kind. I'm yet to research that as to how we'd actually run that, and Jarks might know a bit more, but I'm looking into that.
Yep.
There's DeFi and CeFi. When you've got a fund, you can make money out of having money or having assets. And then I just listed some of the blockchain blockchain foundations like Handshake, Algorand, some of the ones that, I'm hanging around. There's also Partners, Wallet of Satoshi, Entrepreneur Program. I thought, down the track, once you get your project-based learning, there might be opportunities for revenues from projects that are created, not sure. There could be play to earn in there. Also having some links with some mining companies. Iris Energy is an Australian company. Looking to see if we can maybe structure some sort of, some sort of partnership with them. They might be interested in our project. And Jill mentioned grants, which predominantly come out of like governments, foundations, big global foundations. But I thought right now we've got lots of access in the decentralized world.
Yeah.
And that's probably a question, where do we want to focus our efforts first? Do we want to go and speak to Advanced Queensland, or do we want to go and speak to a global foundation, or do we want to go and speak to decentralized foundations and get them involved?
Yeah, I think decentralized to begin with, for sure.
Yeah, so that's so just some ideas there. That's in
awesome.
in the Google Doc. You can add to that.
Beautiful.
And the last thing, what was the last thing I had on my list there? Sorry, Kieran, I can't see on that email I sent over to you. I had one more. Oh, okay. So Stacks ANZ community building. Just working on doing some stuff on that, which is, I'll just share that. So I just started to identify, okay, if we're starting a Stacks community in Australia, where's our, I guess, lowest hanging fruit of who we can find. So just picking up some links to the groups of influence in crypto, Crypto Australia, crypto investing, Collective Shift, there's Telegram, there's a bunch of blockchain. Swift's got a big, the exchanges in Australia have some fairly big communities. So it's about finding all the stackers in Australia. So just starting to collate that. So when we're ready to go out there and start coming up with some, a program for the Stacks Australia, just starting to, if you've got anywhere that you can see some areas of influence, obviously the crypto community's the first group because they're probably holding stacks. So you can add to that in there as well. That's also in the docs.
Awesome. Good work. Very good indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, like we were talking about the other day, so for that card game, for example, reaching out to like the Gitcoin community to sort of contribute to that, so or fund that. So I think there's heaps of like DeFi networks and communities that will definitely fund what we're looking at building. So and like each fork of the School of Bitcoin as well. That's really helpful. Thanks, Electra and Gordon. And particularly around the legal stuff. Have we thought about just on the like the Marshall Islands thing? Where does like Bitcoin Beach and El Salvador lay within that?
Yeah, so I think second stage research.
Yeah.
It was just like today, if we were going to create one and we need to limit liability straight away, there's some options. But yeah, definitely let's look into see what they're doing over there.
I was just thinking before this, I'm like, well, if we spun everything up, got the Bitcoin Beach guys involved because they're working with schools already, host like the materials in El Salvador and have the DAO registered there, like that would kind of make sense. So obviously synchronized thought there with the Marshall Islands thing, but I might reach out to the Bitcoin Beach guys because they might have some advice on that as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, only on a real surface level dive, Marshall Islands seems very tied in with the US. In fact, I think it's some sort of state of the US, some sort of structure tied into the US.
Yeah, it's under the US administration.
Yeah, under US administration. So, yeah, but
I mean,
definitely.
Ideally, we'd want to run it in Australia, but I mean, if it's going to be too hard, then yeah, it's path of least resistance, I guess.
Yeah, Australia might end up with a very, very good model because they're learning from other things. So yeah, as we get along there, I think we'll come up with some great solutions. But I'll dive into what's going on in El Salvador and see what's going on in those countries.
Awesome.
This week.
Yeah, I've got the guy, one of the guys on my contact list from Bitcoin Beach, so I might hit him up again. I think once the news went public, they got inundated with people. He's like, I'll get back to you later, and I just never heard anything, but I'll hit him up again. And then finally on the list of stuff there, we've got Jacques, so your email. So I wanted to, do you want to run through that today, or should we do another sesh together on that?
Yeah, I think in general, like I would like if we can get some like just straight up like working sessions aside from this, so like we can kind of like dig into like actually like building out each aspect of the DAO, get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty. I don't know what schedules would look like other times in the week, but because I think we could kind of do something that's joint. I don't know, we could have multiple people come in, but we can maybe focus on how we build this out with like the tokenomics in the days.
Yeah.
And then we'd also use that to inform like how Jill's working on her curriculum and everything like that, and then get outside input.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Also, should we do like another curriculum design sesh like we did sort of last time specific to that? I think that might be the way to go.
Yeah, I think so. I think honestly, like if we can get something that's, I don't know if 2 weekly meetings is something that's helpful, but I know that me trying to run through things in a couple minutes isn't
not gonna cut it. Yeah, agree.
Move things very much,
Well, let's do that. All right, so we'll find a time. We'll do some emails, but just find a time that's like suitable to all of us, I suppose, to sort of jump onto that. And then
do you want to run through something now if you want, but
maybe just high level, and then we can do a deep dive on the next one.
Sure.
Yes. And it might give Peter and Michelle a bit of a visual as well, which would be good.
Yeah. Here, I'll share my screen here.
God, my phone's nearly dead already. Did
Okay,
an update on my phone to Calyx OS. So Calyx OS is like an open source version of Android. They did an update and my phone's just like insanely hot and the battery's nearly gone within the course of this meeting. It's great. Need to roll it back or something. All right, go for it.
Quick question.
Okay, sure.
While Jacques is, oh, sorry. Okay, go Jacques.
No, go ahead. You have a question.
I was just installing Session on my computer because I noticed that that's where the Stacks community is hosted. But I don't have the URL for the community.
So that was meant to be a topic for today. So Chris, who's one of the devs, was going to jump in with us, but he hasn't.
I think it's side.
But next week we'll hopefully do that. I might
All right.
remove that from the website for now, just so it's not confusing.
Okay, yeah. So I'll run through this at kind of like a high level. I'll try to just mirror what Kieran was saying before with like the whole walkthrough. So like the organization page of the School of Bitcoin can be thought of as the days, and then like within are these different repositories that can be thought of as curriculums, DAOs, and sub-DAOs. So this particular repository is, I mean, this will kind of like, you can think of it as like the conceptual design for how the School of Bitcoin is going to have its decentralized autonomous education system. So it's like the umbrella DAO above the others. And really, this is just like a structure that we're working through right now to see if it helps us just work through all the different aspects of this. So it runs from us walking through, like I was saying before, like the mission statement, that'll all be tracked within an issue within the repository. And then it's the same for each one. So like as I'll be populating all the actual questions and like the content within these, but like as people work through this, they'll be able to fill in metadata or just like the background information that represents exactly what it is that learners are working towards. And this will be able to point to like if someone has a course on YouTube, maybe this repository just points people to where they go. And depending on how people encode their DAO, they can say exactly what the outcomes are. And it seems a little like maybe like a little high level confusing for now, but the goal is to automate this whole process where we can create a GitHub Learning Lab. And with this, we'll be able to create a walkthrough that's similar to this. So in this, like the first core step could be create your open source mission statement. The second core step would be define your project roadmap, define how you're gonna have a positive impact in the community, all the way down through like creating an NFT marketplace. And one of the last steps is how you design the gamification aspect of your curriculum. So like what we're working through right now, I mean, there's clearly it's still high level, but the ultimate goal is to completely get this automated. So as people work through this, like a GitHub Learning Lab for how they'll create a DAO or a curriculum, they'll be able to easily spin up something, work through how to tie it into the broader network, and then allow the days to kind of grow on its own. Anything else you want me to cover in that, Kieran, you think?
That's pretty good. Maybe Peter and Michelle might have questions though.
A bit early for me for questions.
Same.
It looks interesting, but yeah, I think it's a good template to begin with. But I'll take a look at it. I guess, is it linked somewhere where I can access it?
Should be on the GitHub.
GitHub curriculum, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think is it on the website? It was.
It is, yeah. It is in the homepage of the School of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and really, and that's kind of like what I was saying. It would be really helpful to have you in some of these sessions, because I feel as we walk through them, I mean, even in this call, you've had so many good points that, like, I mean, help us see things from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Just ping us
That's
something.
and we could help you create something. Go ahead. Sorry.
when you've got a working session, as long as you can give us a few days notice, so that we've got enough time to review any documentation, we can be there.
Yeah, so Wednesdays work better for us because we've got a lot of other scheduled stuff. But
Perfect. Well, we'll do this session every week, and then we're going to do. I guess we'll find time to do another curriculum creation session.
Unless you'd want to use this time as like a work, we can use it as a working session next week. I mean, I can get things ready. I don't know how. I don't know if you'd want to take away from all the updates that we do here. Otherwise, you know, I don't want to necessarily take away from other people's.
I'm happy to do two if we can find the time.
Okay, yeah, that works for me.
Yeah. You guys all right with it, Jill and Gordon and Electra?
Yeah, just Monday, Tuesdays, I'm just like 12-hour days, and I'm not even ready for these meetings. So like a little later in the week would let me put my brain into it.
So I mean, for Electra and I,
Don't hold back because of me. Like you guys are building the curriculum. You know, I'm more of an observer at this stage with that area.
Yeah, at the minute, I think Electra and I can work on stuff, you know, more on the stacks, the funding side, the that legal side, accounting side, getting everything ready to plug and play. At that point in time,
because it's what we're involved
that's
in.
what we're
with
already
our,
doing. So
with our blockchain course and our.
So if we had that as our little
anyway.
working group, we can do that for the minute.
Yeah, perfect. All right, yeah, let's continue like that then. That's really cool. And I think then at some stage we can do like a Tech Explorers DAO. So if we do that together, you can run through it and we go, all right, this is how you do it. Once we have it sort of knotted out, I reckon that's the way to go. All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that for today then. And then we'll find a time, maybe maybe we'll do the Monday again if Jill and Jacques, if that works for you. I think that was pretty good.
Just feedback on the timing. Mornings usually for me are very difficult because that's when I'm doing all my recordings.
Okay.
Are quiet here, and there's not so much of a problem when I'm in between courses, but right now I'm actually doing one. So mornings tend to be harder. Almost every afternoon is a bit is easier because I'm all done with the recordings, which is the hardest part of the day, and I can concentrate on other things. But just like, I'm not saying that you should do all your meetings in the afternoons, but sometimes like I have to choose between like a recording to stick on my schedule or a meeting. I usually have to go for the recording because there's other things that are hanging off it. If Wednesday mornings, is that like a fixed time for?
Yeah, so we've got this as recurring the same time every week.
Okay, I can try to make it. Sometimes I may have to do to make a choice of one or the other.
Cool.
With the tail end of my recording, so it should be okay for the next few weeks.
Yeah, no stress, no pressure. Whenever you can make it. And it's also probably, if we do the afternoon, that'll be the middle of the night for Jacques because he's in.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Whereabouts are you, Jacques?
In Chicago.
Chicago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we've got family there.
Yeah,
So we often
love
have to
Chicago.
conflict with the times. Yeah.
No
worries. Yeah, it's okay. I manage. Sometimes I'll send my representative.
And put a little post up too. I sort of a bit early for the School of Bitcoin, but the Blockchain Collective have done a short little course about emerging technologies that includes Bitcoin. So if you've got any schools or anywhere in your networks, we're making a focus for the month of March, up in the Gladstone region here. So all kids to get them involved in the different technologies, but we'll be focusing on the Bitcoin part. So just email, if you're going to send it through your networks, I'll just send an email with Austin's. He just wanted to be kept, where it's going out to, but any schools or whatever can do that course. Students can just log in, it's free. They get a certificate at the end.
Oh.
Anyone in the world can do it.
Can we reach out to these guys and see if they want to contribute to School of Bitcoin as well? That might be cool.
Blockchain Collective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That'd be
think
interesting.
somewhere down the line, they're there. They teach tokenomics,
Cool.
like applied blockchain.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, let's leave it there for today, and we'll reconvene Monday, and then I'll see, I guess, everyone next Wednesday if you can make it. And I think we've got a bunch more people joining us next week as well. Hopefully Chris as well. I won't stuff that up again. We've got the principal from a new school in Vietnam, Michael. He's really cool, and he's doing basically it's a school that's doing STEM from equivalent of prep or elementary, or the what do they call preps in America? Shark, I've forgotten. It's like, before year one. Preschool, I guess. Yeah. Right up to year 12. So they're doing, it's pretty awesome. So it's him and I think his AP going to join us. And we've got, what else was it? Oh, Bob Perlman, who's he's a pretty famous educator from America, he's got a pretty cool blog you can check out. If you just Google Bob Perlman, it comes up. But he was like, I've got no idea about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. Am I going to be able to contribute anything? I'm like, yeah, 100% come in. It'd be great to get your feedback. And also Ray Trotter, who's the ex-principal from Arana. So he wants to jump in as well. So should be cool.
Good to see Ray again.
What's that?
Nice.
Good to see Ray again.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It'll be good to get him. I want to get his input on the white paper actually at some point. So as well as you and Michelle and Peter, if you guys are looking at contributing as well. I think Ray's input would be pretty cool as well, because he's quite good at writing, and I think putting some focus on it and giving that his experience, I think, would be really helpful.
And Kieran, just the updated white paper is the link in the website, the continuously updating white paper of.
So I've taken it off the website for now.
Okay, sure.
So it's the 2.01. So we'll just work on that. And I think we put that. I think we have put it in our roadmap for the Stacks application as well. So we can work on it with that. And I haven't heard back from the Stacks guys, so I might hit them up with another email and see when they can jump into a meeting with us as well. But yeah, all good. Thanks everyone for jumping in. This is another great session. I feel like we're really getting somewhere. It's awesome.
Good to meet you all.
Thanks for all your efforts. Fantastic.
Nice to
Fascinating
meet you
follow.
guys.
Nice to
See
meet
you
you.
guys.
Bye.
Day.